Hello everyone, I am Archana Gedam. Thank you for joining today's event. It is an honor to welcome you all. As you all know, Dhamma Cakka Pavattan Day is being celebrated all over the world. Ambedkar International Center wanted to take this opportunity and pay respect to the greatest visionary, the architect of Indian Constitution, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We are indebted to his commendable work, because of whom we got confidence, pride, and respect. On this day, Baba Sahib, along with several people, embraced Buddhism. His followers pledged to carry forward his vision of a modern society based on fraternity. Diksha Day is a historical day of believing in equality and justice. Baba Saheb wanted to see India where every human treats other humans with equality. By law, it is written on a document that every human is equal. But is it actually true? India got independence in 1947. But is really every citizen of India independent? It is the necessity at this moment to revisit and try to understand whether the society has made progress just the way Dr. Baba Saheb had dreamt for the world. Let's see what our speakers today have to say about it. We have guests here sharing their life experiences and what change they faced after walking on the path laid by Baba Saheb. We have Venerable Bhante Revat, who will share his view about what human liberation meant during Buddha's era, followed by speakers Dr. Karuna Yadav, Amit Tiwari, Lenin Raghuvanshi, sharing their life experiences, and Christopher Queen will give a talk on Dr. Ambedkar's vision of a Buddhist social democracy. Rakesh Gupta will be doing a vote of thanks. Now, may I please request Venerable Bhante Revat. Venerable Bhante Revat is currently teaching in Chautauqua Institution, New York. Bhante also taught courses on contemporary Buddhism in different universities in USA, Canada, and Europe. He has degrees in religious studies, South Asian studies, and anthropology from different universities like Canada, Colorado, Arizona, and he was also a fellow at the Center for Justice at Columbia University. He is a co-editor of a recently published book, Human Dignity, Practices, Discourses, and Transformation. Please welcome Venerable Bhante Revat. Thank you.
Okay. Namo Buddhaya and Joy Bin. Good to see you all. Happy Dhamma Cakka Pavattan Day. Usually I like to listen Professor Christopher talks, but somehow I will be missing today because I have another event probably in 5 minutes. Nonetheless, I think the host is recording, so I will be listening from YouTube or when you send it to me, the video. So I will be speaking, I was asked to speak about the Buddha's way of human revelations, very briefly though, within the frame of time that I have. The central teachings of the liberation is the central teachings of the Buddha, hence and Buddhism. The Buddhist practice ends with the realizations of liberation. The Pali words vimutti, nirvana, or arhata phala, among other Pali terms, are used interchangeably for Anglophone words liberation. The English words awakening, realization, enlightenment are also used to refer to the Buddhist concept of liberation. Essentially, Buddhism is all about liberation. So the question is, liberation from what? First and foremost, the liberation is from samsara, the repeated cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth, which also mean liberation from suffering and ignorance. In the context of Dr. Ambedkar, Dalit Buddhist community, and 66 Dhamma Cakka Pavattan Day celebration, it is the social liberation, liberations of slavery, liberation from class domination, and liberation from controlling human behavior. For Dr. Ambedkar and so many others, it was the insight, knowledge, wisdom, rationalism, active care, kindness, compassion, and equality taught by the Buddha are the key ingredients in bringing about social emancipation as well as emancipation of mind. Buddhists across the Buddhist universe love addressing this as an inner freedom. Whenever I talk on the subject of liberation in Buddhism, I always remember one story happened more than 10 years ago in Toronto, Canada, on subway or metros. On one late afternoon, I was returning from the university to the monastery, from Toronto University to the Burmese temple. Suddenly, I felt someone was touching my shoulders behind, upper shoulders, and heard this: "Can you give me an enlightenment?" I answered, sometimes of course sarcastically, saying, "I do not carry an enlightenment on my back, but I have some chocolates for you if you want. It has flavors of liberation." Usually, I do not feel comfortable or safe enough to talk about religion or religious issues or deep Dhamma discourses on subway, on public transportation. Finally, most of the time I commute mostly on public with the public transportation. So people usually I met different walk of life, they ask different questions too. Anyway, what you need, assuring him, is not an enlightenment, but a moment of quietness, a moment of pause, a moment of peaceful, or simply a liberation from everything. Only Buddhism, not me, can give you this, or the kind of liberation what you need right now, I added to the person who was asking to give him an enlightenment on subway. He promptly responded saying, "Why Buddhism? Why not Buddhism?" I made counter question, as I do sometimes, depending on the situations. Recalling our conversation that we had more than 10 years ago, and based on the Pali Buddhist text, the text that I'm mostly familiar, I will briefly discuss the Buddha's way of liberation in the time of the Buddha. A few weeks ago, I was in Northern California to consecrate and to establish a Sima Sala, or an ordination hall, where the novice monks and nuns will be taking higher ordination. There, I met so many monks and nuns from England, Germany, Italy, USA, even a Black Buddhist nun. A real estate agent who helped to find this place, by this place I mean the Buddhist nunnery in Virginia, was invited to see this auspicious event. It was a very shocking moment for her to see all the monastic that she has never seen in her life, especially seeing the Western female Buddhist monk, female monks or nuns. For those such as this real estate agent who are not familiar to the idea of Buddhist conversion, by Buddhist conversion I mean people who have left their old faith, converted into Buddhism, or embraced Buddhism, politically correct saying. So the obvious question is, what makes Buddhism so interesting to them? What makes these people to leave their old faith and suddenly become a Buddhist monastic? Why people change their religion from one religion to another? In the case of Baba Ambedkar, from Hinduism to Buddhism. Although I'm aware of the answer, of what answer would be, yet I usually ask this question whenever I meet Western Buddhists, whether they're monks, nuns, or lay person. All these people are interested in Buddhism or ended up becoming a Buddhist because of the Buddha's compassionate teaching on human liberation. They want to live a life of simple life, a quiet life, a life of minimalism. Dr. Ambedkar was interested in Buddhism because of the freedom of mind taught by the Buddha. If we look at more closely at the contemporary Buddhist society, you will see there are so many people who are Buddhists, or they like to identify themselves as sympathetic towards Buddhism. Jubu is another popular Buddhist words, or the popular words among the Jewish Buddhists in North America. To your surprise, you will find at Buddhist astrophysics in France, Buddhist psychologists in America, many Hollywood celebrities who are Buddhist, a popular Dharma teacher in Australia are Buddhist too. Indeed, it might not be wrong to say Buddhism is fastest growing religion in the West. In the West, now we have American Buddhism to refer Buddhism in America, Australian Buddhism, Canadian Buddhism, European Buddhism to refer Buddhism in Europe, respectively. All this possible because Buddhism provides pragmatism, a practical way of approaching the life, and Buddhism also not culturally bounded religion. It moves easily from one cultural context to another. Buddhism emphasizes an internal practice and inner work rather than external behaviors or religious behaviors. So Dr. Ambedkar and Dalit community and Western Buddhists alike all have one similarity, that is, they found a refuge in the Buddhist way of human liberation. From the biography of the Buddha, we learn that the Buddha stood up for oppressed people, and the Buddha spoke against the social injustice. The Buddha's teachings on equality, justice, and dignity become a powerful voices for powerless people in the time of the Buddha. The Buddha was giver of hope to the hopeless people. His teachings on kindness, compassion, and hope become an inspiration and motivation for generations to walk in the path of the righteousness. The Buddha gave them a safe space to the people who do not feel safe. This is why so many people have joined the Buddhist Brotherhood or the Sangha, the community of the monks and nuns, to liberate from social discrimination and cultural oppression. In the time of the Buddha, the Buddhist monastic disciples came from different social backgrounds. Some came from rich family or elite society. Others were poor and destitute. Some had a very good education. Others have no education at all. And yet, they refers as a Sakyaputta or Sakyadita in Pali, meaning the son and daughters of the Buddha. Regardless of their social status, rich or poor, educated, uneducated, a widow, a murderer, a lost person, once they join in the community of the Sangha, they are known as the son and daughters of the Buddha because they all felt liberated. They found a safe place, a place where they can practice equality, respect, and dignity. This is the one of the Buddha's way of human liberation, as Baba Sahib experiences in his time and tried to liberate also his Dalit communities also. The Buddha is always believed in the possibility of human freedom under any circumstances. In one sutta, the Buddha said, I quote, "Just as the great ocean have a one taste, the taste of salt, so all the teachings of the Buddha have one taste, that is the taste of liberation." This is wonderful news for us. For the Buddha, liberation of mind, having a healthy mind, is the human liberation. This is why the Buddha reminds us through his teaching to be mindful, to be aware of, to watch our own thoughts and thinking. This is wonderful news for us because the Buddha, what the Buddha means by this is that in the time of despair, in the time of loss, in the time of war situation, we somewhere always secretly knows that some part of us, the heart can be free. There are so many Buddhist theories in the Pali text as well as contemporary Buddhist literature who have experienced such the freedom of heart, including myself. I grew up with an abused stepmother, and then spent half of my life in an orphanage, which was also equally bad. And yet my heart is free. All this happened because of the teachings of the Buddha on human liberation. For the Buddha, the liberation of mind. Okay, so the Buddha wanted to us to reflect daily on the basic human goodness, that we all are equal and we deserve to be treated dignity. The Buddha emphasizes to think and to believe in the possibility of inner freedom, and it is possible whenever we think it is possible. Thank you. I don't think I have enough time. I have to go to another. We got Katina season, so I got a couple of events. Okay, I wish you a very successful for the rest of the event. I will catch you up later. Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy being Namo Buddhaya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you so much, Venerable Bhante Devi. Even after having another event for the Katina ceremony, still you managed today for the talk. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. May I now please request Dr. Karuna Yadav. She is currently associated with Naval Warrior Institute of Management Studies and Research in Pune. She's a software engineer having 20 years of experience. She has received several awards and is an active member in the MBA syllabus setting committee in Pune. She is also an active member of the Institute and AIC committee. Dr. Karuna Yadav, please go on. Thank you.
Namo Buddhaya and Jai Bhim to all. Good morning and good evening. It's my privilege and I'm very proud to be a part of this evening with you all. As we all are aware about that, on the occasion of the Dhamma Chakra Pavattan that we are celebrated in India on October 14, you people are celebrating it as Human Liberation Day. And it's really a very nice celebration to remember that our tradition, like how, why, and how we, the people from India, we had when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, he has announced in 1935 in Evla conference that I will born as a Hindu, but I will not die as a Hindu. So on that particular day, he has given a challenge to India that throughout I will make the all India as a Buddhist India. And I'm very proud that being an Indian, before starting with my speech, I have a small question to all, if you allow me. So we all are human beings. And being a human, what is our religion? What should be our religion? Can anyone? What should be our religion? Can anyone, if you allow the participant to if anyone want to answer my small question? What should be our religion? We all consider as a human being, then what should be our religion? Humanity. Yes, many people, they have given a very correct answer. Yes. And today, my focus only on that humanity, because when Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, he has taken a decision to convert from Hinduism, and there is a big question, like then which religion? Many pressed or many people who are belong to various religion, they approach Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and they discuss, our religion is good, please come into our religion. But as we all are aware about that, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has taken a very strong decision and to convert into the Buddhist, because the Buddhist religion basically focus and that is based on the humanity. And your social democracy, which is based on humanity. As we are aware about, I'm really thankful Bhante, which he has enlightened us by giving a concept of Buddhism, and which is based on the Eightfold Path, Pradhanashil Karuna, and then how we introduce this all, a teaching of Buddha in our day-to-day life. Okay. Now, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, when he has given us a vision, we all are aware, I will not going into detail because already the organizer has given me a time as a constraint. I restrict myself to discuss the historical movement from Hinduism to Buddhism. I will discuss and focus only on a few issues that after the Indian independence, 75 years of India, which got independence, still, what are the major challenging issues that we are facing being an Indian and as a Buddhist community? Every time, whenever India is nominated at a global level, the all government, they have taken it as an opportunity to showcase this particular nature, particular India, by gifting the idol of Buddha to other PM or other foreign delegates. Why not the other religious idol, Rama, Krishna, and all that? They're aware about that. The contribution of Lord Gautam Buddha to the humanity, it's something, it's nobody can touch to that limit. And they are aware about that this particular religion is combination of all the requirement which the current human being is waiting for. They're struggling to get all globe as a united one. Being the human and the Indian, we have a major challenging issue that I want to introduce today through my speech, that after the 75 years of independence, these are certain issues we all call as ourselves as a Buddhist, but there is a difference between the caste and the religion. And many, I am in the very noble profession, and I am always focusing on that, how to introduce the Buddhist philosophy in my management teaching. I know that nobody, because this is supposed to be introduced in your curriculum, but not a single government in India, they are taking it as their syllabus. But still they are implementing all those things which is given by the Buddhist religion. Just for example, there are certain very important things which is the base of a Buddhist religion, like cooperation, coordination, compassionate, loving, sharing, coordinating, optimum utilization of available resources. That is, we are aware about from all the stories from like a Buddhist philosophy. And all those are introduced in the management teaching. Where is the lagging? That are the major problem with the Indian education system. And I need the help, the people who are sitting abroad, because only of education. Now, what is important thing, like the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, his particular mission and the vision for us, we have all this responsibility on our shoulder. And this is a very challenging task, which is very, very important for us, like how to take our efforts to talk or to teach everyone this a principle of Buddhist religion. Because when we are talking on the social democracy, we need to start from our family. So considering that in India, we have introduced a National Education Policy 2020. And this is what we can say very smartly, they're closing the door of the poor people, the lower caste people. They are not focusing the major challenging task in the new education policy in India 2020. The people who are sitting abroad, they need to focus on, like, these are the certain things which are supposed to be incorporated in the syllabus of Indian education from KG to PG. Then second point is a job. Okay, so according to the constitution, Indian constitution, when we are talking on the social democracy, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has taken an effort by writing this constitution. He focused on social justice, that is the spirit and the vision of the Indian constitution. But somewhere, when this any government, when they are coming on as a ruling government, they are trying to maybe they have a certain particular strategy where they are not implementing this particular job, or they are not giving a job to the concerned person. Whereas they're showing people, we are not getting a competent people. And they are not utilizing the particular thing, social or any media to let them take the opportunity and be a part of this particular job, opportunity or employment opportunity. Second, a third issue is a reservation. Many people, if you through the various social media, you come across the current Indian issues, people, they are focusing on the reservation. Stop reservation. Stop reservation. Why? Even the other religion people, they are training their children and their kids. They are coming towards as anti-reservation. So we need to focus on this particular issue, that reservation, what is the main purpose of reservation? Then the social justice, we always say that a social justice, but being a professor also, every day on various occasions, I'm feeling humiliated on various occasions. Like recently, the India is celebrating the Diwali, and there is nowhere written a circular by any government that you need to celebrate Diwali as a Lakshmi Pujan and the Saraswati Pujan at the education institute. But still, they are celebrating and they are investing money by celebrating this particular Lakshmi Pujan. And so we, the people from various religion, we feel humiliated. Why only this particular tradition in the this particular system, education system? So we need to focus on this. If we are following only the Hindu tradition in the education system, why not the other tradition? So these are again important things. Next is like impact of Hindu religion on the Buddhist religion. So I just want to focus, these are a really challenging task in the India, that still a conversion also, many Buddhist people in India, they still follow the tradition of Hindu. They are saying ki we will follow both tradition, but they are not able to understand ki what is a good thing in the Buddhist religion. So we need to focus on this issue as well. So this is my life experience. And the last point which I would like to introduce in my speech today, that is intercaste marriage. Many people, that was, I am writing research paper, my research, this is my current research project where I'm working on that. I also approach for ICSSR for this project to get a grant. So what is the challenge and intercaste marriage? I'm not opposing the intercaste marriage, but I just want to introduce about this particular tradition in India. Only the Brahmin girls, they are getting married to the Buddhist male, and that is a highly educated, and who is getting good salary. And mostly they are trying to prefer the who are settling abroad. Very manipulating thing. So my point here is, when they are marrying to the Brahmin girl, there is loss of Buddhist community. And this Brahmin girl, when she enter into the Buddhist family, she will not give justice to the Buddhist democracy or Buddhist philosophy in the family system. So how to focus on this issue? So this is a certain example of cases which I share from my life till my teaching experience. Many students, when they are having a friendship, they least bother about the caste, religion and all. But when people from the Buddhist religion, they fill a reservation form, which is a provision through the Indian constitution and in the education system, they are coming to know that this particular my friend is belong to Buddhist community. And then there is a trouble in their friendship. So people, we have in education system, the government of India, they have formed the SC/ST committee, where these are a certain humiliation which the people belong to SC/ST committee, they are feeling day-to-day life, they need to get the justice. This is a social justice where at the current India also, in the education, at the job place, at the various local public places also, many people, they're struggling to get the social justice. Now, how to solve such a challenging issue? People sitting abroad, they need to help us to, because Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, he always focuses and he has given us three very, very important things. Be educated. Yes, we, the people from India, and that is to considering the Buddhist philosophy, we have taken this, we are taken the education. You people are sitting abroad because only of this education. Be organized. Here, we are not able to organize. Somewhere we are organized in the sense there are different and the various groups. Our destination is same, but it is scattered. And be agitated. So again, the question is remain that how to focus on this, like when we need to focus on to social justice. We have taken education. Now these two things, how to be organized and to be agitated. So it is the need of a current India to take this as a challenging task by considering that, because when Dr. Baba Sahib given us a vision for a Buddhist social democracy, considering that it is a need of current India, and I really congratulate AIC, where you people had sitting abroad, you're looking into the very small issues which the Indian people are facing today. And you people are taking efforts to solve such an issue. So these are a certain current problem. You might be getting certain news from the social media, like how the kid, when he's touching to the water pot, still there is a system of untouchability. And if you're touching the water pot too, when he's feeling thirsty, the teacher has beaten him till her death. And this issue, nobody has taken the courage to fight against this system. There are many issues. And last, I just want to focus on, I'm very happy being a woman, because that was a vision and the one focused in statement which is given by Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, that I measure the progress of community by the degree of progress which women have achieved. And as we know, Baba Sahib used education as his tool to forefront the cause of liberty, equality, and fraternity. So on this particular occasion, I must say thanks for organizing team to ask me to share my experience and given me this opportunity, providing me this platform to raise certain issue in front of you. So let's us make our all efforts come together and look into this small issue to make the all world a peaceful world and solve, which is the vision of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar towards the Buddhist social democracy, give us social justice, the Buddhist philosophy everywhere in your personal life, as well as your family life, as well as your work life, which is a need of current global level. Okay, so thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karuna Yadav. Now, may I please request Sanjay Kumar, the president of Ambedkar International Center, to share a few words with us, please. Thank you.
Jai Bhim, everyone. It was a very nice, speech. What just said, and Bhante also said. AIC is doing, taking all those things at international level. So Human Liberation Series we have started, that usually happens during the Dhamma Pavattan Cakra Day. We have been doing it from years, and this year I'm pretty sure it's going to be very good. And our speakers are going to put their points and their life. They will share their life experience. So that's going to be very good. And for me, Buddhism is embracing Buddhism is not an emotional thing. Baba Sahib took years, and then he embraced the Buddhism. So, and AIC is also doing the things like running the series and making the people aware of that, and not only from India. Our goal is that to bring of everyone and make a community where everyone is equal, because right now hate is at the peak. So Buddhism and Ambedkarism can save this world. That's what our opinion being AIC is. We are going to create an AIC center at Maryland. So pretty soon we are going to build it, so where we can have more talks like that. So please visit our website, aicusa.org, and all details are there. Thank you so much, and I'm really excited to hear all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay Kumar. Now, may I please request Amit Tiwari. Amit Tiwari received his BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT. He moved to the US to seek a PhD in physics. Influenced by Dr. Ambedkar's writing, he has been propagating Buddha's Dhamma on various social media platforms since 2018. Go ahead, please, Amit. Thank you.
So firstly, I would like to clarify that I'm not a very good speaker, but and and most of the speakers have spoken and they have like covered everything. So I don't know what I can speak about, but I will just quickly share my experience and how I became an Ambedkarite and a Buddhist. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. So so I was born in Jaunpur, UP, and but my father was in Indian Army, so I lived in different parts of India for like 2 to 4 years in various cities, and then I studied in army schools in Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Jammu, Maharashtra, Uttarakhand, and then finally I did my BTech in electrical engineering from IIT Gandhinagar, and then moved to US just 3 years ago to pursue PhD in theoretical particle physics and cosmology from University of Delaware. So what about my upbringing and conditioning? So my grandfather, he was a typical Brahmin in a village, and he used to perform various Vedic rituals. So naturally, my father grew up in that environment and was conditioned by Brahminism, and still it's a culture or religion of my family. Uh, and but of course, I lived far away from the village in army campuses, so the influence was not that strong on me. But occasionally we used to like visit villages, like our village for vacation, and I have seen, of course, untouchability, which is very common in at least in UP. I never opposed untouchability. But it was always in my subconscious mind because I was just visiting village for like few days, 5, 6 days, and for a week, and so there was like I never got to know about it much. Uh, so then, of course, I can go on and on about my life because now I have lived for more than 25 years. So I can talk about it a lot, but I don't want to take too much time. So I will quickly go to how I changed. So the change started happening when I was at IIT Gandhinagar. So there I liked my physics professors more than the engineering professors, mainly because of the questions they were interested in, like fundamental laws of the universe, evolution of the universe, etc. And then I also had a good friend who was also doing engineering, but was also interested in physics. And we started discussing many fundamental questions in physics. And sometimes our discussions used to divert into metaphysical domain. So my friend was an atheist and I was not, and he was able to make me slightly atheist, but only from inside. From outside, I always believed in the need of a religion, and hence continued to practice and participate in various religious activities. So how did I like meet Baba Sahib Ambedkar? So in my second year of engineering, I was appointed as a chief election commissioner, and I was given the task by the Senate to draft rules and regulations to conduct free and fair elections. So I started reading Constitution of India and doing my own research to come up with election code of conduct draft. And during that time, I read various parts of Dr. Ambedkar's arguments in Constituent Assembly debate. So this was the first time when I understood the importance of democratic values in a great depth. So in the beginning of my fourth year, I became even more interested in Dr. Ambedkar's writings. After my BTech, I spent another 2 years trying to decide what to do in life and what to do next. And finally, I came to US in 2019 to pursue PhD in physics. So in a sense, I got like extra 2 years, and it was a good time to read more about the Dr. Ambedkar's and his writings. So so what I quickly, let me just summarize what I learned from Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and I think I cannot express it in my words, so I will actually quote him a lot. So first thing I learned from him is his democratic republican values and the conditions on which the success of any democracy depends. So in a Constituent Assembly debate, and I quote, he said that political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of it social democracy, What does social democracy mean? It means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as the principles of life. They form a union of trinity in the sense that to divorce one from the other is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. Without equality, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many. Without fraternity, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many. Without fraternity, liberty, and equality could not become a natural course of things. It would require a constable to enforce them. So if I have to summarize Dr. Ambedkar's ideology in 3 words, basically he wanted the world to have liberty, equality, and fraternity, all these three things to coexist. And the next thing I learned about from Baba Saheb is Hinduism is based on wrong ideals, and I became convinced about this after reading his book Annihilation of Caste, and later Dr. Ambedkar summarized this in his 22 vows while converting to Buddhism. So I quote from Annihilation of Caste. He said it very explicitly. I realized that the word is an imperfect word, and anyone who wants to live in it must bear with its imperfections. But while I am prepared to bear with the imperfections and shortcoming of the society in which I may be destined to labor, I feel I should not consent to live in a society which cherishes wrong ideals, or a society which, having right ideals, will not consent to bring its social life in conformity with those ideals. If I am disgusted with Hindus and Hinduism, it is because I am convinced that they cherish wrong ideals and live a wrong social life. My quarrel with Hindus and Hinduism is not over the imperfections of their social conduct. It is much more fundamental. It is over their ideals. And later in his 22 vows, and that is like after 20 years of writing Annihilation of Caste, he said that I renounce Hinduism, which disfavors humanity and impedes the advancement and development of humanity because it is based on inequality, and adopt Buddhism as my religion. So the next thing so now I'm coming more to Buddhism. So then I, of course, went too much into Buddhism because of Dr. Ambedkar, and I explored Buddhism through his writings, and of course then I started reading other authors too. So what I learned from Baba Sahib is that both material and spiritual development is important to become a complete human being, and it's kind of his critique of Marxism and his vision for the world and the second turning of the wheel of the Dhamma. So in Buddha or Karl Marx, he writes that man must grow materially as well as spiritually. Society has been aiming to lay a new foundation, was summarized by the French Revolution in 3 words: fraternity, liberty, and equality. The French Revolution was welcomed because of this slogan. It failed to produce equality. We welcome the Russian Revolution because it aims to produce equality, but it cannot be too much emphasized that in producing equality, society cannot afford to sacrifice fraternity or liberty. Equality will be of no value without fraternity or liberty. It seems that the three can coexist only if one follows the way of the Buddha. Communism can give one, but not all. And then in Buddha and his Dhamma, he again emphasizes on this point that poverty gives rise to sorrow, but the removal of poverty does not necessarily give rise to happiness. Not a high standard of living, but a high standard of culture is what gives happiness. This is the Buddhist way of life. Then another thing that I learned from Baba Sahib is his rational outlook, which he, of course, rediscovered in the teachings of the Buddha. And since I'm a physicist, so this is the thing that actually resonates with me, his rational outlook. So he said on 15th October in a speech at Nagpur that the principles spoken by Bhagwan Buddha are immortal, but the Buddha did not make a claim for this, however. There is an opportunity of making changes according to the times. Such open-mindedness is not found in any other religion. Another thing I learned from Baba Sahib is freedom of mind is the real freedom. And I think Bantaji talked about this, and it is the ultimate salvation. So in a speech delivered by Dr. Ambedkar just 20 years before his conversion in the Bombay Presidency Mahar Conference, he said that I call him free who with consciousness awake realizes his rights, responsibilities and duties, he who is not a slave of circumstances and is always bent upon changing them in his favor, I call him free. One who is not a slave of usage, customs and tradition, or of the teachings because they are brought down from the ancestors, one whose flame of reason is not extinguished, I call him a free man. He who has not surrendered himself, who does not act on the teachings of others blindly, who does not keep faith on anything unless it has been examined critically in the light of cause and effect theory. So again, as a physicist, I find it this very interesting in the light of cause and effect theory, because of course physicists believe in this theory. And then he in his another article, he has emphasized, and it's a very famous quote of him, that cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence. And actually, a lot of people, when they do science, they start feeling some existential crisis. And Dr. Ambedkar gave an answer that the cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence. And the disciples of Gautama are always well awake, and their thoughts day and night are always set on the Dhamma. This quote is from the Buddha and his Dhamma book. So now finally I will conclude my speech as I'm running out of time. So carrying forward his movement of human liberation, so what things we should focus on is, firstly, we should be spreading Dr. Ambedkar's writings. Secondly, we should be spreading Buddha's teachings, which we can of course do through Dr. Ambedkar's writings, and that should be our commitment. And Dr. Ambedkar said this very explicitly, that to spread Buddhism is to serve mankind. This is from volume 17 of his writings and speeches. And the third thing is, which also Dr. Ambedkar emphasized, is making a strong and ideal community of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and upasaks and upasikas. And he said that the duty of a Buddhist is not merely to be a good Buddhist, his duty is to spread Buddhism. Thank you. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya. And I think my entire speech is captured in this slogan, Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amit Tiwari. Now, may I please request Mahesh Guru Ganti to introduce Dr. Queen, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Archana. And that was an excellent talk, Amitji and Karuna. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Christopher Queen. Dr. Christopher Queen, a scholar of Buddhism and former lecturer on Buddhism and world religions at Harvard University, where he has also served as Dean of Students and Alumni Affairs for continuing educations. He holds degrees in religion, theology, and the history and phenomenology of religion from Oberlin College, Union Theological Seminary, and Boston Universities. His publications center on socially engaged Buddhism and the Buddhist movements of Dalits, the ex-untouchables of India, spearheaded by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, scholar, activist, and father of Indian Constitution. Dr. Queen co-edited and contributed to 4 anthologies on contemporary Buddhism: Action Dharma, New Studies in Engaged Buddhism in the West, American Buddhism, Methods and Findings in Recent Scholarship, Curzon 1999, and Engaged Buddhism, Buddhist Liberation Movements in Asia. He has also published numerous articles, reviews, and reference entries on Ambedkar Buddhism and social engaged Buddhism. Dr. Queen is former board president of Barre Center for Buddhist Studies and co-founder of Dharma Cakka Mission and Academy, serving low-income citizens of Bodh Gaya, India. On behalf of AIC, I welcome Dr. Christopher Queen. Over to you, Dr. Chris. I think you're on mute, Dr. Chris.
Okay, thank you very much, Mahesh, for that generous introduction. Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya to everyone this morning or this evening, where you are in the world today. I see many of our friends in India are here with us in North America. So thank you for this opportunity to say a few words about why I consider myself an Ambedkarite. After 30 years or so from visiting India and meeting extraordinary people, followers of Babasaheb Ambedkar, I feel it has changed my life, as it has many of yours. It was 1986. I had just finished my doctoral studies in philosophy and history of religion, and I had my first opportunity to go to India. And I went to a fundraiser in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they showed a slideshow of Dr. Ambedkar's career and his followers. And I was amazed by that. I had run across his name in various books, but never realized what an active and vital movement it was. So I contacted Professor Eleanor Zelliot at Carleton College, and she gave me lots of names and addresses and phone numbers of wonderful Ambedkar leaders, including Vasant Moon and his wife, Meenakshi Moon, who were activists in Mumbai, and he was editing the writings and speeches of Dr. Ambedkar, and I managed to contact him, and he invited me to stay in his apartment there. I slept on the couch there for a number of days. I commuted into Mantralaya, where I got to see his office and his work on Ambedkar's career, and also took me out to Nagpur to visit the place where the Diksha Bhumi monument was being constructed at that time, back in the 1980s. And his own personal library of Ambedkar materials, which had 4 divisions: A for Ambedkar, B for Buddhism, C for caste, and D for Dalit. And he had hundreds of materials under those categories. So in subsequent visits to India, I got to meet amazing leaders going back to Babasaheb's time, such as Nanak Chand Ratu, who was his personal assistant, Shankaranand Shastri, who wrote a memoir about his time with Dr. Ambedkar, Maisab Ambedkar, who was a very wonderful, devoted woman to the Buddhist cause and to her husband's memory, Waman Gadboli, who helped to organize the great first Diksha ceremony in Nagpur on October 14, 1956. So I got a real introduction to the movement, and Professor Torat was my guide in many of these visits, and he took me to meet these incredible people who helped Dr. Ambedkar to launch this Buddhist conversion, which lasts to this very day. I went back to Nagpur in 2006 and 2016 to join the millions of people who showed up to march around the stupa there and to say, you know, Jai Bhim and educate, agitate, organize, and all the wonderful slogans, and to feel a part of this surge of humanity for human rights and for human dignity. So coming back to the US, I discovered that there were also many groups of expatriate Indians, Dalit, Ambedkarite, Buddhist Indians in North America, who were attempting to keep this tradition going and to raise money to help people back home. Some of the groups, I'll just shout out to some of these amazing groups over the past 30 years or so. Yogesh Vahadi's Vision, Volunteers in Service to India's Oppressed and Neglected. Raju Kamble's Ambedkar International Mission, who sponsored many conferences in India. He was a Nagpuri, as was Yogesh. The Boston Study Group, which has sponsored, if you go to these websites, you'll see an incredible activity that they have done, sponsored many speakers from all over the world to keep this tradition alive. The Ambedkar Association of North America, and of course now the Ambedkar International Center sponsoring today's event. So thank you very much for playing your part in all of this. I don't have a great deal of time, so I'd like to ask the fundamental question, since this is Human Liberation Day, Diksha Day. What is Buddhist liberation? And Bhante Ravata has given us a great introduction, not only to the traditional idea of personal spiritual liberation, but also to social liberation as well. And Amit Tiwari and Dr. Yadav have also given us a great introduction. So I don't need to go over all of that. We know as Buddhists, we should know what the Four Noble Truths are all about, how to overcome suffering caused by our own hatred, greed, delusion, and ignorance. The 5 precepts, how to live a life of integrity and honesty and purity. The middle path, avoiding extremes of pleasuring and moderation and so on. And the divine abodes of friendliness and compassion, joy in the well-being of others, and equanimity. These are all the traditional values we associate with liberation from suffering. Buddhism developed in Asia in many different forms, the Hinayana or elite vehicle of the monks, but also now we associate with mindfulness and meditation movement, which is a global movement. Mahayana, universal vehicle. A bodhisattva could be anybody, could be your next door neighbor, could be your member of your own family, someone who's attempting to follow the precepts of the Buddha and to act out of wisdom and compassion for others. This is the Mahayana concept. The emptiness of things, meaning that everyone passes away, everything passes away, and we have to embrace change and embrace novelty and so on. And then the Vajrayana, the theocratic traditions of the Himalayan states, Tibet and Bhutan and so on, very much the veneration of lamas, the Dalai Lama and so on, devotion, ritual, philosophy, personal humility and generosity. All these Buddhisms are present and alive in the world. I should say Zen Buddhism as well, which is very popular with many people. So how is these yanas, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, how is Dr. Ambedkar's teaching adding to all of this? Not canceling it, but simply adding a very rich new dimension. He called it the Navayana, or new vehicle. What is new about it? Well, he had a profound insight that the suffering that we have is not entirely caused by our own habits of mind or habits of spirit. Hatred, greed, and delusion are things we all admit to, and we can all try to counter by generosity and by calming of ourselves, our angry habits, and so on. But so much of the suffering in the world obviously is caused by social conditions, by inequality, by oppression, by war, by diseases, which really shouldn't be allowed to continue. We have the medicine to treat them, but who has the funds or the resources to use these medicines? So Dr. Ambedkar, being a product of the caste system in India, coming from the very lowest of the caste, of the untouchable caste, the Mahar people who were, village scavengers and servants and messengers and so on. He was a brilliant man, so he was able to pursue education. And amazingly, his followers like to chant his academic degrees: BA, MA, PhD, Master of Science, Doctor of Science, Doctor of Laws, Doctor of Literature, 4 doctorates, 2 of them honorary doctorates and 2 of them earned and so on, plus his barrister at law. All of these things made him probably the most highly educated man in all of India. Well, what did he do with all of that education? He stayed very close to the people from whom he came. In 1927, as you know, the Satyagraha in Mahad for basic rights of access to water, drinking water. This was a major gathering in which the police beat people up. They burned Manu, the ancient law code that made people unequal and tortured and tormented them. And he stood firm on the streets. All of the kinds of activism that he sponsored throughout his career, in the classroom, in the boardroom, in the courtroom, and on the streets, represented his use of education to liberate people in the social sphere, in the social domain. So social suffering, what are the principles of his Navayana new vehicle. First of all, that suffering is a social matter as well as a spiritual and a personal matter. It's not all your fault. Hatred, greed, and delusion may be there, but they have been institutionalized to oppress individuals and to keep them from the resources that they deserve. So what is the opposite of social suffering? Well, Amit Tiwari read a wonderful quote about Dr. Ambedkar's value of the great slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity. And in fact, Dr. S.P. Ashok has entered the chat. Well, let's not misunderstand what Babasaheb meant by using the French Revolution slogan. Here's the quote from Dr. Ambedkar. My social philosophy may be said to be enshrined in 3 words: liberty, equality, and fraternity. Let no one, however, say that I have borrowed my philosophy from the French Revolution. I have not. My philosophy has roots in religion and not in political science. I have derived them from the teachings of my master, the Buddha. That's a wonderful clarification and in a way an answer to Dr. Ashok's question. So social suffering. Secondly, social activism. I mentioned the 1927 Mahad Satyagraha, but also rallies, boycotts, strikes, and government politics, testimony on the roundtable conferences, and so forth. So his slogan, in addition to liberty, equality, fraternity, educate, agitate, organize, the wonderful slogan he picked up from the Fabian socialists at the London School of Economics, probably coined by George Bernard Shaw, founder of the London School of Economics, and of course, a great writer as well. And this slogan came back, I will end my talk with a famous remark that he made about this particular slogan. And so what is his vision for a democratic, social, Buddhist, collective nation? As we all know, he is famous, probably more so for drafting the Indian Constitution, perhaps than his conversion to Buddhism, strangely. But for those who run across his name in social sciences or history, that may be the primary connection. He was probably the one who recommended that Ashoka's Dharma Chakra, the wonderful wheel that we see on the Indian national flag, be used as a symbol for a social democracy, which is founded on such things as human rights, due process of law. And the Constitution of India, the longest democratic constitution in the world, is a product of his vast scholarship of constitutions in other countries and other traditions. He believed, however, that many of the principles in a democracy can be founded in the ancient Sangha that was established by Lord Buddha. Parliamentary procedure, the use of motions, resolutions, quorum, whip, vote counting, the ballot box, censure, and impeachment, all these things were parts of the Vinaya established by the Buddha in a society, a fraternity, but also a sorority, because he extended it to women at the very beginning, in which anyone has access to this kind of a society based on the quality of one's personality, the quality of one's education, the quality of one's effort to become a contributing member of the community. Worth, not birth. So the notion of a social democracy is founded in his study of Buddhism, which was extensive, as you know. I had the privilege of working in the library at Siddharth College, where many of his books are now kept behind glass cases, but anyone can go in there and look at them. And his markings in the margin and his underlinings, the things that he wanted to emphasize in his readings of Buddhism and his readings of philosophy and history as well. And so the 3 slogans really that come up over and over again in Dr. Ambedkar's writings, his voluminous writings, and thanks to Vasant Moon and his committee, we now have 20 volumes of Ambedkar's writings and speeches. The 3 slogans are the ones we've mentioned: liberty, equality, fraternity, educate, agitate, organize, and the three jewels of Buddhism. Buddha, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So I wrote an article in a book that came out last year. It's unfortunately impossible to buy the book for less than $100, but you can read the ebook for $37. It's Sally B. King's Buddhist Visions of a Good Life for All. And my chapter in that book takes the three slogans and puts them together in a way that I hope will help us to remember Dr. Ambedkar's vision for a Buddhist social democracy. So the way it goes is the Buddha represents, the slogan for Buddha becomes educate for liberty. So you see Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, educate, agitate, organize, liberty, equality, fraternity. Buddha is educate for liberty, stressing education. And all of Dr. Ambedkar's followers recognize the vital importance, not only of his own education in imagining a future for India and for all people based on serious academic formal study, but also the openness of mind represented by Buddhism itself, the freedom of thought and speech, so that as we think about our children and the coming generations, we realize, as many people, not just Buddhists, of course, but many people do, that education is such a key to our progress. The Dhamma, so Buddha represents educate for liberty. The Dhamma represents agitate for equality. Now, agitate is not a word that most Buddhists feel comfortable with, because Buddhism is supposed to be calming your mind, quieting your body, and becoming a humble, contributing member of society. But Dr. Ambedkar was a very, very courageous individual who spoke out repeatedly throughout his life, and he acted and placed his body on the line. He was beaten during many of these early demonstrations and so on. But social engagement in politics, in economics, speaking out, writing editorials, editing newspapers and books, writing books, Navayana publications today, using his title for this new movement, Navayana, is a wonderful source of books about Buddhism and about the Dalit struggle for human rights. So Dalit literature, I wrote a review of 10 Dalit autobiographies in this wonderful new journal, CAST, International Journal on Social Exclusion. And in fact, Professor Lawrence Simon, I believe, is with us in this meeting. He's Professor of International Development and Director of the Center for Global Development and Sustainability at Brandeis University. And he and Professor Torat have founded this journal, CAST, International Journal on Social Exclusion. So I recently reviewed Dalit autobiographies that show the courage and the activism of people coming from the poorest level of society, who, because of Dr. Ambedkar's inspiration, have educated themselves and engaged themselves in trying to transform society in India. Finally, Sangha. The slogan for Sangha could be organize for fraternity. Of course, fraternity doesn't mean a club for men, men's club. It means democracy. Dr. Ambedkar had a wonderful passage in which he says that John Dewey, who was his professor at Columbia University and who influenced his thinking about society, philosophy, and freedom, believe that this concept of fraternity is just another way of talking about what he called an attitude of respect and reverence for our fellow human beings, for fellow men and fellow women. And so we put these slogans together and we get Buddha, educate for liberty, Dhamma, agitate for equality, Sangha, organize for fraternity. And it raises the question, so what do we expect to do with all of that as Ambedkar Buddhists, as it were, as followers of this great man who still remains very little known around the world? Many people, like the Roma people of formerly called the Gypsies of Europe, have embraced Dr. Ambedkar. Many of the untouchables of Japan have discovered Dr. Ambedkar's writing and influence. But here we are in North America or in India today, and what are the challenges we face now? Well, certainly as Buddhists, we want to continue to attempt to practice kindness and generosity in our personal lives, to practicing the various virtues that we associate with this particular religious tradition. But we also want to join with others to improve the conditions in our own community. The Buddhist organizations that Dr. Ambedkar founded for young people take on the challenges of teaching literacy to neighbors who don't have decent schooling, and at the village level, for example. So finding ways in our local community that we can assist others, the elderly, the disabled, and so on. That's very much a part of being a Buddhist, of being a humane citizen. But supporting organizations that seek to reduce suffering in the world at large, national and international organizations, either as a member or as a contributor, writing a check if we can afford to make a donation, that support human rights, humanitarian relief, democratic principles. One of the great organizations, for example, sponsored by engaged Buddhists, is the Buddhist Global Relief, founded by Bhikkhu Bodhi, distinguished scholar of Buddhist social teachings. And this organization is something that my wife and I want to support as we think of our final days and where we would like some of our money to go when we pass on. Buddhist Global Relief is something that means a great deal to us because it supports the provision of food and education to some of the poorest people around the world. So I know all of you think about how you could use your resources, whether they are humble resources or perhaps accumulating resources because of your professions and your jobs. Who can you support? How can you share? Teaching children about the challenges of our time. Education, once again, is something we pass on to the next generation. And this is something that, as Ambedkar Buddhists, we hold particularly dear. So I'd like to simply conclude my remarks with this wonderful quote that I assume you've heard many times. Dr. Ambedkar said, addressing about 70,000 people in Mumbai on one occasion, said, "My final word of advice to you is educate, agitate, and organize. Have faith in yourself. With justice on our side, I do not see how we can lose our battle. The battle to me is a matter of joy. The battle is in the fullest sense spiritual. For ours is a battle not for wealth or power. It's a battle for freedom. It's a battle for the reclamation of human personality." So I found these words to be deeply inspiring in my own life, and I'm sure you have in yours as well. So thank you very much, and Jai Bhim.
Thank you so much, Mahesh, and thank you so much, Dr. Queen. Now, may I please request Lenin Raghuvanshi. Lenin Raghuvanshi is a social activist, political thinker, and a social entrepreneur. He is one of the founding members of PVCHR, which works for the upliftment of the marginalized sections of the society. He has received several awards and was also nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Please welcome Lenin Raghuvanshi. Thank you.
Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya. I heard a lot of wonderful teachings and learnings, and I inculcate a lot of knowledge. And also very happy Dhamma Pavattan. I'm going to very focus on myself because I'm born in very upper caste family. My grandfather was freedom fighter. My father is communist. And my grandmother was very strong Sanatani, and my mother too. And due to my library from my father, I started to read the literature of Rahul Sanskrit. He's a Buddhist scholar in North India. And from his writing, I started to read about Baba Sahib. And at the same time, I joined to Nobel Peace Laureate Kailash Satyarthi, and I have very big argument with him. internally, because I did not find a single bonded child labor and the bonded labor from upper caste. And I told, why we are not addressing this caste system? And thanks to Baba Sahab, who converted me from upper caste man like a devil's to me. So whole transformations, whole degender process, whole decaste process, only and only through the teaching from the Baba Sahib. And from there, I started to read about the shaman cultures, not only from the Lord Buddha, also from the Lokayats to the whole saint movements in this country. And this shaman culture is culture are against the Brahminical hegemonic masculinity of caste system and patriarchy. And the whole concept of the peace and the 8th part of the enlightenment gave me very differently spiritual inner power to me. And thanks to Bhante Ratan Jyoti, who is also one of the key persons converted as a Hinduism to Buddhism along with the Baba Sahab. And he converted me in 1999 from Hindu to Buddhist in the Meerut. And along with my life partner, Shruti Nagarajan. So there is also many tussles, and you look, there is a tussles by the people who believe in hegemonic masculinity. I love my mother, but you look, she kicked out me from her will because I'm converted as a Buddhist. And so there is a big tussles also, but this tussles is the real contradictions we need to resolve, because without the elimination of hegemonic masculinity, without this establishment of the shaman culture in this part of the world, it is impossible to save the humanity. And it is my absolute understanding, uncompromising understanding. And this is the learning. And I also, because due to the Baba Sahab teaching, I converted from upper caste man, means degender process. So that initiated in 99 and I born in 1970. So I lost my many years of my life as a real human being. So when I talk with my son, Kabir, Karnik, because his name is Kabir and Karnik is name of Buddha, because we both partners decided to give his name. And that is very important for us. And I told him, you need to be degender. You need to understand the teaching of Baba Sahib. And this 22 oaths written by Baba Sahib is the foundation. It is a very important thing. And the Baba Sahib is very different from others because he is a person who created, one had the critical thinking. Also, he is promoting the indigenous wisdom. So indigenous wisdom of the East and the critical thinking of the West are the real coming as a culminations in the whole teaching of the Baba Sahib. And that is one of the fantastic way to save the humanity, not only in India, also a different part of the world. So thank you to the centers, give the opportunity to me. And I'm not going to speak a lot, but the most important things, without the realizations of the preamble of Constitution, without the realizations of the teaching of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, without the realizations of the teaching of the Lord Buddha and the shaman culture, it is impossible to achieve any type of equalities, equity, and the fraternities and the liberty, especially in the South Asia. And that is my absolute understanding. And we are also fighting through our organizations. And Baba Sahib, the whole teaching of the Baba Sahib is the foundation of our organization, PVCHR, this Committee on Human Rights. We are secular organization, but we are not promoting the abstract secularism, what the French are also facing. Maybe once upon a time, we are going to make a discussion on that. So I believe in the contextual secularism. And you look what people like us to learn, also we change many lives and also the thought process of many key people in this country. This Bharat Jodo Yatra, Neo-Dalit movements, it is always influenced by the shaman culture of this country. So this is the high time. We want to eliminate and agitate to the hegemony masculinity of the Brahmanism of the caste system and patriarchy, and we need to establish our shaman culture in this part of the world, and that is only way to eliminate the corporate fascism from the South Asia and also to create a different language. So thank you, and Namo Buddhaya and Jai Bhim. And thanks to salute to Baba Sahab, who converted people like me from devils to the humans. So if you want to create real human being, without the teaching of Baba Sahab, nothing going to happen in the world.
Thank you so much, Lenin Raghuvanshi. Now, may I please request Rakesh Gupta, the Vice President of AIC, for a vote of thanks, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya. Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya to everyone. Bhante Revata, I think he left in the beginning after his speech, but I have to address him. Resident monk of AIC. Today's guest of honor, Professor Christopher Kuhn, Harvard University, and our eminent speakers, Lenin Raghuvanshi, an Indian human rights activist, Amit Tiwari, student from UD, a PhD in physics and cosmology, is a really interesting subject, and Dr. Karuna Yadav, a Buddhist scholar, and originally she's a software engineer from Pune. On behalf of AIC, I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to today's special guest, speaker, Professor Dr. Kuhn, and speakers, Dr. Yadav, Amit, and Lenin, for taking out the time out of your busy schedule to join today's session. Thank you for your views and experiences shared with us on this occasion of Dhamma Cakka Pavattan Day, celebrated as the Liberation Day. It was really good to know the opportunities and challenges we have ahead of embracing Buddhism. One thing, but I would like to mention that it's a unique session that speakers from diverse community share their views. As you already know, that we listen views of Amit and Lenin from our caste community, besides Dr. Yadav and Dr. Kuhn. So it's in that sense, I would really appreciate that they have accepted our invitation to speak on this occasion. Overall, I would say it was a wonderful, inspiring event, enlightening session that motivated all of us, and in fact, in a more practical aspect of Buddhism. And by the way, even if it is a short event, like just an hour and a half events, we have already made history by adding a drop, you can say a drop to our liberation movement, and that has to go a long way. So thank you, all the speakers. Archana Gadam, our AIC secretary, thanks. Thank you so much for hosting and anchoring the session. And I think it's, again, this time this is ended in like a very timely manner. We kept it like an hour and a half. It's just an hour, 1 hour and 35 minutes, even though we started a little late because of we were waiting for people to join. Thank you, Mahesh Gurgunti, for our board member, for introduction of Professor Kuhn. It was good that you gave a lot of information about him, his work and books. It was a comprehensive introduction, so it's good that you provided a lot of information about him. Our President Sanjay Kumar, thank you for sharing your views, even though you are not feeling well and you are in India, but really much appreciated that you basically made available yourself to speak on for a few minutes. And thank you again. Thank you, Bantaji, for your practical aspect of liberation that you spoke in your speech, and basically a living aspect of life in Buddhist practice. And last but not least, our sincere thanks to all the attendees of today's session. We appreciate the keen interest that you have showed by joining the session and investing your time in listening to our speakers. hoping for your continued participation in future events. And thanks again for encouraging AIC by witnessing your virtual presence. Together, we will strive hard to make the liberation movement forward, to take the liberation movement forward. Please, before I end, may I request you please visit aicusa.org and connect with AIC via WhatsApp or other ways, so you can find out the more information on aic.org. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you so much, Rakesh Gupji, and thanks to all the speakers, all the respected speakers. You're amazing, and every speech was so inspiring. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You have a wonderful time. Take care. See you next time. Bye.